What's up, everybody? I am back. Continuing on with more James Bond film reviews. And this one I'm covering Skyfall. Not gonna beat around the bush. One of my favorite Bond films, easily in the top three, or the top five. So cut to the chase. This is directed by Sam Mendes. Daniel Craig reprises his role. Judi Dench reprises her role. Well, we got Javier Bardem playing one of the best Bond villains, Raul Silva. We got Ralph Fiennes as Gareth Mallory. Naomi Harris as Eve Moneypenny. Bernice Marlowe as Serene. Albert Finney as Kincaid. Ben Winshaw as Q. Finally got Q in this. Who, by the way, is the voice of Paddington. I'm pretty sure that's the second guy who voiced Paddington in those films. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure that is. Yeah, I knew I got it right. I was like, because I recognized the voice. So the movie opens spectacularly as Bond chases after this hench dude named Patrice, who's holding this encryption key with agents working for NATO. So, while Eve Moneypenny, it's the first time we actually get to see Moneypenny on a field, and both Bond and, I gotta say, these two great chemistry. You got to have Bond and Moneypenny have impeccable chemistry. So, glad they nailed that down right off the bat. But anyway, these two chases after Patrice. Bond ends up going on top of a train in order to chase after the guy. But as Eve is trying to take the shot to take down Patrice, he doesn't get a clear shot as these two guys are duking it out on top of a train. But M orders her to just take the shot. Of course, she misses. Bond falls over into the waters, presumed dead, as we get a great Adele intro song. 1 second. So, Bond relegated himself to live a life in like a early retirement on some like island or something. As he's banging chicks, getting drunk, while losing that encryption key. Emma's like under scrutiny, and Mallory is trying to tell her that, you know, they don't want to end up firing her, but they kind of forcing her hand to just go into early retirement with honors. Because I get the theme of the film in terms of, like, you know, people getting older in time and all this other stuff, and it's like, we get it. Some of these people are old. You don't have to beat us over the head with it. But I love the line from M was like, "Oh, to hell with dignity. I'll finish when the job is done." It's like it's just I paraphrasing, but it's just like that line delivery is just like, God, they don't make like women in movies like that anymore. Where it's like we'll get the job done, and it's not pandering. It's just like, yeah, this fits with this character. This character earned it. It's not just giving it to her because she's a woman. It's like she's earned that line. She's earned that attitude. She's earned those stripes through trials and tribulations. On our way back to headquarters, it gets blown up by a cyber terrorist attack, and Emma's being threatened that once a week a set of 5 undercover agents will be revealed once a week if well, I'm pretty sure it's like M don't turn herself in or something. 1 second. Once Bond gets wind of this, he comes out of retirement, and Emma's more annoyed than shocked. It's just like she is like she expects like, oh, you're supposed to have been here. It's like I love this dynamic. She's not even like tripping by the shock that he's actually alive. It's like she's expecting it. So he isn't reporting back to duty, and I love this because the fact that he's pissed at himself and her, the fact that she didn't trust him to get the job done, because that's was mostly bothering her. I was like, because Bond still got a bit of an ego, so the fact that it's kind of like the job got completely stripped from him is like pissed him off. But he wanted another crack at this, but he fails at his physical, psychological, and weapons test. Mostly because he still got like bullet fragments into the shoulder, but once they run tests with that awesome line, "For her eyes only," nice little. I love when they interweave the title of a movie into these Bond films. Turns out the bullet fragment comes from a very rare source. Only 3 people have access to. One of them being Patrice. Tracks him down, trying to under orders to figure out who he's working for. So he ends up tracking him down to Shanghai. And of course he meets Mallory, and before he goes to Shanghai, he meets the quartermaster, and I'm shocked that it took 3 films before eventually he actually get a quartermaster. And of course, I love, just like with the first time, like, well, there's more Brosnan. When he meets M, they trade quips, not immediately establishing like I can trade quips with you too, and I'm not want to bow down to your little charms or whatever. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to work with you. Let's get this thing done. And I was like, okay, she can hang with the boys. You get kind of this same dynamic with this new Q and Bond, whereas like trading jabs because of age. but it's just like immediately there's respect. So he ends Bond this case with the unique Walther PPK that only is tied to his unique fingerprint signature and will only work for him, and a radio the signal for reinforcements. And I love like Bond's bit of disappointment and the subtle reference from Q is like, we expect an exploding pen. We don't do that sort of thing anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, like, after all these years, still thinking to myself, why not? This is James Bond. I want him to have at least a couple. Like, I'm not mad at what he got, but I expect a little more. Something a little fancier, something gimmicky, something, like an exploding pen. Things that seem so innocuous that will turn the tide of a fight. That gets to me, through the Daniel Craig era, where it's like the gadgets are not like, I want to say not cool, but they're not like stand out. They don't stand out. And it takes so long just to get to this point. Anyway, so it goes off to Shanghai and tracks down Patrice, leading to this cool shot in the building where it's all silhouetted with just these blue neon lights, popping in and out as Patrice waits for his moment where people in the building across the way is setting up an opening for him to kill this dude. Was Bond just ends up let happen. A fight between these two break out, which, like I said, is a cool shot. Bond holding this guy over the edge, trying to get him to give him the answers that he's looking for, who he's working for, and he can't. He's not saying anything, and he slips. And he falls to his death, which Bond is irritated because he's trying not to kill these people. He's trying to get some information. And he spots the woman that is looking at this that we meet later, Severine. But Bond manages to get at least a clue off of him. This is like a poker chip, at least to this particular casino that him and Moneypenny go to. And I love this shot as Bond is surveying the area. If you're paying attention, we see in the background as Moneypenny is still walking by, as they're still, conversating over the earpiece, quipping and flirting. But you see her track it down as he's walking at a particular point, and she passes right by him. It's just a cool shot right off the bat. The cinematography in the shots, all this stuff is just immaculate. Money well spent in this. Bond confronts Severine. Turns out she's like a former child slave rescued by this mysterious criminal. And her supposed bodyguards are there to deal with Bond. After Bond turns in the poker chip and gain the cash, Bond deals with the criminals and promises to meet up with Severine, who he bangs, which at the time caused a bit of an eyebrow raise from some people, saying that it seems a little bit inappropriate given the fact that she's a former child slave, sex slave, and she's been through probably like horrific stuff until she got rescued by this criminal. But I do love the scene where Bond falls into a Komodo dragon pit with a couple of goons. One tried to use his gun, but it's like, didn't work, and he gets snatched up by a Komodo dragon. But the look Bond gives, the fact that he just Never seen a Komodo dragon before. It's kind of like looking at a freaking dinosaur or something, and it's like, it's like what? It's like same dude who takes on crazy villains all the time, fighting on top of train cars, but Komodo dragons what trips him up. That's kind of funny. It'd be kind of funny if Bond, the one thing Bond probably fears is probably like giant lizards or something. I don't know. It's kind of like with Indiana Jones with rats, or oh no, not rats, but snakes. Rats was his father's fear, but it's kind of funny if Bond has a fear of lizards or something that nobody else knows about, but it's kind of like kept to himself. But he meets up with Safarine. They on this yacht that takes him to this island because the casino was in Macau. So they're going off the coast of Macau into this secluded island where we meet the main bad guy, Silva, played by Javier Bardem, who did an amazing job. And probably the first either bisexual or gay villain in a Bond film, because he was sitting there as Bond started up putting the moves on him, and it's like, what the hell? And of course, trying to take Bond off kilter, but Bond quick with it. It's like, what makes you think this is my first time? And it's like, oh, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. It was like kind of like very like taken aback. It's like, just trying to one up the other and repartee. But I'm glad they didn't harp on that so much. Nowadays there would have been like a big thing where they'll probably have Silva wearing like a rainbow pen or tie or something like that, really like flaunt it in your freaking face instead of just making it subtle and you just kind of catch the hint. But that's not this kind of movie. The target audience is still a guy's film, and Silva, maybe eccentric, probably into dudes, but all in all, he is obsessed with M, because he is a former MI6 agent. Matter of fact, I think it's probably the first time that a Bond villain, used to be an MI6 agent. No, I misspoke. I'm completely forgot about GoldenEye, which I just reviewed a couple weeks back. Yeah, it's one of the few. Let's just say it's one of the few Bond villains that used to work for MI6. And him and Silva and crap, I'm blanking on Sean Bean's character's name. Crap, what is it? Alec. Sorry. Golly. Keep wanting to say Sam for some reason. But Silva was the one who rescued Severine a long time ago. But it's just, she betrayed him because she was willing to give everything just for Bond to potentially kill him. So he sets up, he's trying to, before we get to that point, he's expressed to Bond the fact that, Mallory isn't what Bond thinks he is. She's willing to use us as chess pieces, and it's all a joke. It's tiring. It's stupid. I can give you whatever assignment you want, something that's suits whatever you want, rather than it being forced upon you. It's like, if work with me, Um, of course, Bond is like, and he brings up the fact that on as a cherry on top. Do you know what your records, your test results really were? Everything was a fail. She sent you out, probably gonna die, knowing that you aren't ready physically, emotionally, or mentally. And a lot of lines like, "Mommy's been very bad." Uh, it's just like you see that, like that makes him such an awesome villain. The fact that, matter of fact, him and like Alec is really at the tippy top because, of course, there's like Dr. No and also what's his name, who runs Spectre. Crap. What's his name? Blofeld. But there's something about Silva and Alec that really deepens their reason why they turn to evil, because the organization that they put so much trust in, the government they put so much trust in, their country they put so much trust in, betrayed them, hid secrets from them, and manipulated them, and it brought them to the brink of snapping. And it's like, F this. And they typically try to appeal to Bond because they see a kinship in Bond, but Bond, who has, despite his begging chicks left and right, and the drinking and like willingness to kill if need be, but he has like a grounded morality. It's not even for like whole queen and country kind of shtick. It's just like, I got in this business so I can stop bad guys from doing worse things. But despite his flaws, he's not willing to compromise himself. That's what makes Bond such a cool character. That we all have flaws, but we don't lose that sense of morality that still keeps us on the straight and narrow. We waver, but we always keep that true north, and we don't lose sight of that. Because Silva and Alec are the flip effect of Bond, where they lost that sight because they kind of let those grievances, kind of like break that foundation of their morality. Silva takes Bond and put, see Serene tied up with like a shot of whiskey on top of her head, and he gives him a gun and says like, okay, pretty much like trying to show him like, okay, like you're an expert marksman, shoot that glass over the top of her head. And of course he misses. Silva shoots, kills her purposely, and there's like a whole line delivery I really kind of like. Silva was like, what do you think of that, Bond? And he was like, waste of a good whiskey. And then he ends up in quick succession taking out Silva's henchman and using the radio receiver that Q gave him to call in the cavalry that he ends up turning on before he left the yacht in the first place. So he was pretty much like stalling most of the time. So Silva gets brought in, and he get mixed feelings towards M. he looks at her like a mother, but also he hates her. It's kind of like something that you see with most people that have, like, you can probably understand why they probably relate to him, because people have like love-hate relationship with their mothers kind of situation, and you can probably see that in Silva played out on screen, where he was Silva was operational as an agent, between like the late 80s getting into the 97, where on a mission he was captured and disavowed, and he was tortured by the Chinese. So realizing that there's no cavalry coming in to rescue him, he takes his cyanide capsule pill in his molar, bit into it, but as he eloquently describes, life clung to him like a disease. So in a true blue Bond villain fashion, there's some type of disfigurement towards him, or something quirky about him at the very least, which is a shame because Dominic Green didn't have any of that kind of stuff, which is kind of like sucky, because you want your Bond villain to have some kind of quirkiness or a disfigurement to make him distinguishable. So you see like how, because it's actually pulled from real life stuff. Wouldn't recommend looking it up. I sure as hell didn't. But from other people's accounts, that is very accurate. That it kind of like eats at your insides a bit. So it's kind of like he has this like fake teeth that kind of resets his face to relative normalcy. But as soon as you remove the front fake teeth, his part of his face is kind of sunken in. So as Q takes Silva's laptop, it was all a ruse. There's very Joker in this facet where he planned all this out. He planned on getting captured, and some might argue, just like with Heath Ledger's Joker, it seems kind of like coincidental that everything fell into place perfectly, because how do you know that Q was going to access that laptop right then and there to allow you to get inside the system to allow you to escape? It does. Bond chases him throughout the London underground until he meets up with his guys, changes into an officer's uniform, go to the apartment where M is being questioned on her capabilities of running MI6. He bursts in. Of course, he doesn't take the shot. Like I said, mixed feelings about this woman. But the shootout happens. Mallory ends up, taking a bullet for M. As Bond shows up, get M out of the building, and takes her to his old family home called Skyfall, where he tells Q to leave electronic breadcrumbs only Silva will be able to follow, so he can set up a trap so he can finally take this guy out, because he's been one step ahead of them this whole entire time. Even Mallory joins in to make sure that this ends. We meet the groundskeeper of the estate. What's his name? Shoot. Kincaid. And of course, never knew what Bond did for a living, but of course we get little references to like the Ian Fleming stuff, like the house and his parents' name, but we also get subtle references to past Bond films, like the OG Aston Martin, and you get that classic Bond theme. And of course, you get to see like the the knob with like the ejector seat, which he knows exactly where he is, and M is like, oh, press to see if I care. It's like has no qualms about any of that stuff. It's just like, yeah, that's a thing. And like, oh god, but when it gets shot up by Silva, it's like, oh, that's a classic, you Philistine. Oh god, it's like, I'm not like a huge car guy, but I recognize and respect the classic. Aston Martin is right up there in the top 5 greatest movie vehicles of all time. But man, when you still get to see it in action in like a modern setting, is so good and it's still functional, and you buy it. Oh my god, and it's a shame you don't. I mean, we get it again in No Time to Die, I think, but in like a more updated kind of vehicle. With the same kind of gizmos, but in an updated vehicle. But anyway, they set up the house like, a Home Alone style traps. Take out the bulk of Silva's henchmen, which is kind of weird. You already come in on a helicopter, you practically, using Gatling gun to shoot out the entire house. Why wasn't that your first move? But whatever. But most of Silva's men gets taken out at this point. The house is on fire, but Kincaid takes M, who's wounded, through this underground tunnel, they call it the priest hole, which I think that's kind of gross and weird that you call it that. And they travel, through like a few miles away from the house and head towards the church, while Bond's dealing with the rest of the goons. Silva chases after them, and he can't bring himself to actually kill M, because, like I said, it's kind of like a weird thing he has, but so good. The fact that he's actually legit concerned for her when he sees her wounded. Like, oh my god, you wounded! What have they done to you? And it's like, this dude is completely off his rocker, but he still wants to kill her. But he doesn't want to kill her. He's like, he wants to go out with her. He still loves her. He looks at her like a legit mother. And he clearly had legit history. He working for her since like the late 80s into 97. That is like a good 10-year span as an MI6 agent. And he probably formed like a legit bond, and like with Bond, built probably like a rapport with her. Had a crazy amount of adventures, taking out a bunch of bad guys throughout the years. So it's kind of like, like Bond you can easily buy, given like a certain circumstance, Bond can easily turn into Silva or Alec. But Bond, like Chris Brosnan said in GoldenEye, that was the job. He understands duty and morals and what's right and wrong. He never wavers on that stuff. These guys wavered. The reality got so shook up that they kind of lost any sense of morality. So Silva forces a gun in M's hand. He presses his head against hers, and he wants her to like shoot them both so they both go out together. But Bond shows up nigga time, throws a knife in his back, and the look on his face, and just the sheer like annoyance of Bond. It's like, oh god, Jesus, really? But it's just like, this guy who falls, it's like, it's just like, you also sad in the fact that this guy just been through the ringer, and some argue this is kind of like M's movie because this is her bad guy. that Bond pretty much have to mostly play cleanup for, which is kind of unique because I don't think you actually get this with any Bond film where M is the primary target of this for a villain's animosity. So M, lying dead, or at least falling prey to her wounds, and share last moment of quips between her and Bond, and it's actually a good send off for a character we've been with since the Brosnan era up until this point. It has a long tenure, and Judi Dench, as old as she was at that time, still played it immaculately. It was like a spectacular performance. Oh my god! And she even get like a nice little subtle jab in at the end, where during the reading of her will, she left something for him, which is like a porcelain dog with the Union Jack flag on the back that survived that bombing, and just the annoyance from Bond earlier, where it's like the entire building goes up in smoke, but somehow this blade thing survived. It's just like, God, this is so stupid. But I like that where she just had to get that one jab in from beyond the grave. I love that. And Moneypenny decided to leave field work and decides to work as Mallory's secretary, who has been promoted to the new M, fully establishing like a new dynamic going forward. Now we with like Bond, we got the like a new Mallory, we got the quartermaster, we got Moneypenny. Now we're off to the races, and that's where we leave it with Bond. Skyfall, amazing, it's great. This is like well over $1 billion success. Oh my god, it's fun to revisit this. This is a great film. Oh man. So the next film, the last one I want to review, is Spectre. Because I just want to cover all the Bond films that I actually personally enjoyed growing up. So I'm going to wrap it up with Spectre, because I think that's the last one I actually enjoyed before, the Daniel Craig Bond era kind of petered out in lackluster choices in how the character went. And that's how I want to remember Daniel Craig's James Bond personally. And then after that, I want to leave that as a bit of surprise of the next kind of films I want to review before we get into October. But in any case, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of Skyfall and all your pros and cons of it. And I will see you guys tomorrow, back for more games. And yeah, we'll hopefully get some stuff done for other reviews pretty soon. But in any case, take care and have a great evening, people. Peace.